As the years pass, something becomes painfully obvious. Most of what people say and do has little to do with you, and yet for most of your life you've been caught in this endless cycle of reacting, responding, defending, explaining. You've wasted energy trying to be understood by people who never really listened in the first place. You've engaged in battles that in hindsight were never worth fighting. And for what? To feel validated, to prove a point, to change someone's mind. None of it ever truly brought you peace. But here's what you must understand. In old age, you don't owe the world your energy anymore. There is no longer a need to chase after unnecessary noise. The opinions of others, the gossip, the expectations, they are all distractions from what truly matters. And if you allow yourself to get caught up in them, you will find that your final years are spent just as your earlier years were, exhausted, bitter, and searching for something that was never meant to be found outside of yourself. You must decide now to reclaim your peace. And that means silence, not just in your words, but in your mind. It means resisting the urge to correct people who misunderstand you, to argue with those who thrive on conflict, to involve yourself in affairs that drain your spirit. There is incredible power in silence, because it is in silence that you begin to hear the things that truly matter. The voice inside you, the one you ignored for decades while chasing the approval of others, begins to speak again. And this time, you should listen. You will find that peace is not something given to you by the world. It is something you build within yourself, brick, by choosing what you engage with and what you simply let go. And letting go is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the recognition that not every battle is worth fighting, not every insult requires a response, not every person is worth your time. There is dignity in walking away, in keeping your thoughts to yourself, in allowing the noise to pass through you without disturbing the stillness you've worked so hard to create. But the world will test you, it will pull you back into its games, tempting you to react, to engage, to explain yourself one more time. And you must resist. You must remind yourself that at this stage in life, the only thing that matters is peace. Your peace. And peace is not found in proving yourself. It is not found in changing the minds of those too stubborn to see the truth. It is found in restraint, in the quiet understanding that not every storm deserves your attention. So, let the world be loud. Let people talk. Let them misunderstand you. Let them assume what they want. None of it is your concern anymore. Your only concern is the life you have left and whether you will spend it in peace or in chaos. That choice is yours, and it begins the moment you decide to focus on yourself and stay silent. There comes a point in life when you realize that words, for all their weight and significance, are often wasted on ears that refuse to listen. You've spent decades explaining yourself, trying to make others see reason, trying to get people to understand your perspective. And what did it get you? Frustration, exhaustion, the sinking realization that no matter how carefully you chose your words, no matter how much effort you put into making yourself understood, some people simply never wanted to listen. They weren't seeking the truth, they were seeking confirmation of what they already believed. And so at this stage in life, you must ask yourself, what is the point of explaining? What is the point of trying to prove anything to anyone? You've lived long enough to know that real influence, real respect, does not come from what you say, it comes from how you live. People remember actions. They remember who you were when it mattered. They remember the choices you made when things were difficult, the way you carried yourself when no one was watching. That is what defines you. Not your arguments, not your explanations, not your desperate attempts to be heard. There is a quiet power in simply doing, in leading by example rather than by persuasion. When you live with integrity, when you stay true to your values regardless of who is watching, people take notice. Not because you told them to, but because they can feel it. And that feeling, that unshakable presence of someone who knows who they are, who does not need approval, who does not seek validation, is far more impactful than any speech, any debate, any plea for understanding. Think about the people in your life who left a lasting impact on you. Were they the ones who spoke endlessly about what they believed? Or were they the ones who lived their beliefs without the need for applause? The ones who did what was right even when it was difficult? The ones who didn't waste time justifying themselves but simply acted in a way that commanded respect? That is the kind of person you must strive to be. Not someone who convinces others, but someone who does not need to. But the temptation to speak, to defend yourself, to argue, it will be there. The need to correct misunderstandings, to set the record straight, to make sure people know your side of the story, it will claw at you. And you must resist it. You must remind yourself that in the end, people believe what they want to believe. Your words will not change that. Your actions, however, might. So let them doubt you. Let them misunderstand you. Let them assume what they want. It is not your job to correct them. Your job is to live in such a way that the truth becomes undeniable, to carry yourself with such consistency, such integrity, that even those who once doubted you are forced to reconsider, not because of what you said, but because of what you did. At this stage in life, you don't have the time or the energy to waste on words that fall on deaf ears. Let others argue. Let others try to prove themselves. You have nothing left to prove. Your life is your statement. Your actions are your voice. And if that is not enough for someone, then they were never going to listen in the first place. There is a currency in this life that is more valuable than money, more precious than time. It is your energy, your mental, emotional, and spiritual reserves, what you give to the world, to others, and most importantly, to yourself. And yet for years, perhaps decades, you've spent it recklessly. You've allowed yourself to be drained by people who never intended to refill you. You've fought battles that left you weary. You've given more than you should have, convinced that self-sacrifice was a virtue, that it was noble to put yourself last. But now, as the years have settled upon you, you must wake up to a truth that perhaps you've ignored for too long. You are responsible for protecting your own energy. No one else will do it for you. No one else will step in and say, enough. You have given too much. Now rest. No one will shield you from the exhaustion that comes from overextending yourself. That is your job. And if you fail to do it, you will find yourself bitter, resentful, wondering why you feel so empty despite all you have given. You must be careful with what you allow into your mind, with whom you surround yourself, with the conversations you engage in, the conflicts you entertain, the burdens you choose to carry. Some people, whether they mean to or not, will drain you dry. They will pull you into their chaos, their endless cycle of problems, their need for attention, validation, or drama. And if you do not set boundaries, if you do not learn to say no, you will lose yourself in the process. Not every battle is yours to fight. Not every problem is yours to solve. And just because you can help someone does not mean you should. You must start asking yourself, is this worth my energy? Because every time you invest in something, you are taking away from something else. And if you are constantly giving your energy to others, sacrificing your own peace, what will be left for you? There is no shame in choosing yourself. There is no selfishness in protecting your well-being. In fact, it is necessary. If you do not protect your energy, life will drain it from you without mercy. And so you must become intentional about where you invest it. You must learn to walk away from conversations that do not serve you, from people who thrive on negativity, from situations that steal your joy. This is not avoidance, this is wisdom. Some will not understand your silence. They will take offense when you withdraw from their drama, when you refuse to engage in their pettiness, when you no longer allow them to drain you with their endless problems. Let them be offended. Let them misunderstand. It is not your responsibility to explain yourself. Your responsibility is to yourself, to your peace, to your health, to your emotional well-being. It is not noble to burn yourself out for others. It is not a virtue to exhaust yourself for people who do not appreciate it. It is strength to know when to step back. It is power to choose where your energy goes. And it is wisdom to realize that, in the end, the only person who can protect your energy is you. There's a strange fear that people have, a deep unease that settles in when they find themselves alone. It's almost as if solitude is something to be avoided, something unnatural, something to be filled with noise, distractions, or the presence of others, anyone, just to escape the quiet. But the truth is, if you cannot sit with yourself in silence, if you cannot enjoy your own company, then you are missing something fundamental. Because solitude is not a curse. It is not loneliness. It is a gift. For so much of your life, you've been surrounded by people. Some good, some bad, some who added to your life, and others who drained you without a second thought. You've given your time, your energy, your emotions to relationships, conversations, obligations. And now, as life slows down, as the crowds thin out, you may find yourself alone more often, but this is not a loss. This is an opportunity to truly understand yourself, perhaps for the first time. Most people never do. They spend their whole lives in a constant state of distraction, avoiding the silence because they're afraid of what they might find there. They keep themselves busy, always surrounded by something, entertainment, work, endless conversation, because if they were to stop, if they were to be truly alone, they would have to face themselves. And for many, that is terrifying. But solitude is where clarity is found. It is where you begin to see things as they really are. It is in the quiet moments that you begin to understand what truly matters, who truly matters, and where your energy should go. Solitude strips away the nonsense, the illusions, the need to perform for others. It allows you to reconnect with something deeper, your own thoughts, your own values, your own sense of peace. There is great power in learning to be alone without feeling lonely. Because when you do, you become independent in the truest sense. You are no longer desperate for validation, no longer seeking approval, no longer afraid of being misunderstood. You become someone who does not need constant reassurance because you have found everything you need within yourself. And yes, there will be moments when solitude feels heavy, when you wish certain people were still around, when the silence seems too much. But if you sit with it, if you embrace it rather than run from it, you will find that it is not emptiness, it is space. Space to grow, to think, to create, space to fill with things that bring you genuine joy, rather than things that merely distract you from your own discomfort. This is your time now. Your time to focus on what brings you peace, what makes you feel alive. Your time to enjoy the simple things without needing to share them for approval. A morning walk, a good book, a quiet evening with your thoughts. These are not insignificant. These are moments of true living. And the more you embrace them, the more you will realize that solitude is not something to escape, it is something to cherish. So let the world rush past, let others fear the quiet, let them busy themselves with noise, with distractions, with meaningless chatter. You don't need any of that anymore. You have something far more valuable. You have yourself, and that, in the end, is enough. Not every conversation is worth having. Not every argument is worth engaging in. Not every person who demands your attention deserves a response. And yet, for much of your life, you've likely spent far too much time explaining yourself to to people who never intended to understand you, debating with those who only wanted to argue, giving away your thoughts to those who neither valued them nor deserve them. But at this stage, you must ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Because words are not just words. They are an investment. Every conversation you engage in takes something from you. It requires focus, patience, emotional effort. And if you spend your time in meaningless discussions, in battles of ego, in conversations that go nowhere, you will find yourself drained, exhausted by the sheer weight of words that never should have been spoken in the first place. You must be selective, not out of arrogance, but out of wisdom. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You don't need to correct every falsehood, debate every fool, or justify your choices to those who were never going to accept them anyway. There is power in silence. There is power in walking away. There is power in recognizing that some people do not seek truth. They seek control, validation, attention. And if you give them your time, you are giving them exactly what they want at your own expense. A well-chosen conversation, however, is a different story. When you speak with those who genuinely listen, who engage with honesty and curiosity, who bring wisdom and clarity rather than noise and confusion, those conversations matter. They sharpen the mind, they strengthen the soul. They remind you that words, when used correctly, are not just noise, but a tool for connection, for growth, for understanding. But these conversations are rare. They require discernment. You must learn to pause before you speak, to consider before you respond. Is this necessary? Will this add value? Or am I simply reacting, engaging for the sake of ego, for the sake of habit? The moment you begin asking these questions, the moment you begin choosing your words with purpose rather than impulse, is the moment you take control of your peace. There is no need to be loud to be heard. There's no need to speak just because there is silence. Let others waste their breath on empty words, on endless noise. You have nothing to prove. Speak only when it matters. Engage only when it is worth it. And watch how much lighter, how much freer, how much more powerful your presence becomes. For far too long, you have lived under the weight of expectation. You have shaped yourself according to the opinions of others, adjusted your choices to fit into a world that was never truly yours to begin with. You have chased approval, sometimes from family, sometimes from friends, sometimes from society itself, believing perhaps that if you could just meet the right standards, say the right things, make the right choices, then you would finally be accepted, finally be valued, finally feel like you belong. But now, after all these years, I ask you, has it worked? Has the approval of others given you the peace you were searching for? Has bending yourself to fit their expectations made you feel whole, or has it only left you exhausted, uncertain, and quietly resentful? Because the truth is, no matter how much you do, no matter how well you play the game, there will always be someone who disapproves. There will always be someone who thinks you should have done more, been different, followed a different path. And if you spend your life trying to satisfy everyone, you will end up satisfying no one, not even yourself. At some point, you must ask yourself, who am I living for? Because if the answer is anyone other than yourself, you are living a life that does not belong to you. And that is a tragedy. You see, people are fickle. Their opinions change. What they value today, they discard tomorrow. The approval they give so freely can be taken away in an instant. And if your sense of self is built upon their acceptance, then you are standing on a foundation that will inevitably collapse beneath you. You cannot control what others think. You cannot force them to understand you, to appreciate you, to see you for who you truly are. And you should not have to. What you can control, however, is how you choose to live, whether you choose to chase the shifting expectations of others or whether you stand firm in your own values, your own beliefs, your own sense of purpose, whether you spend your final years continuing to seek validation, or whether you finally decide enough. Because at this point in your life, you should not be living for approval. You should be living for fulfillment. You should be doing what brings you peace, what makes you feel alive, what allows you to look back on your life with the quiet satisfaction of knowing you did not waste it, trying to please people who never truly cared. And make no mistake, this will not be easy. People do not like it when you stop seeking their approval. They do not like it when you set boundaries, when you prioritize your own well-being, when you no longer bend to fit their expectations. Some will call you selfish. Some will accuse you of changing. Some will try to guilt you, shame you, pull you back into the same cycle of validation seeking that they themselves are trapped in. Let them. Let them misunderstand you. Let them judge you. Let them talk. It is not your responsibility to explain yourself to those who are determined not to understand. Your only responsibility is to live in a way that brings you peace. Perhaps for the first time in your life, you must learn to disappoint others. And that is not a bad thing. That is freedom. Because the moment you stop living for their approval, you begin living for yourself. You begin making choices based on what truly matters to you rather than what will earn you praise. You stop saying yes out of obligation and start saying no out of self-respect. You stop pretending to be someone you are not and start embracing who you have always been. And you may find that in doing this, some people fall away. That is fine. The ones who only valued you when you met their expectations were never truly yours to begin with. But what you will also find, what is far more important, is that you finally begin to feel at home within yourself. That you wake up in the morning without the weight of approval on your shoulders. That you finally breathe freely knowing that your life is yours, not a performance, not a duty, not a constant effort to be enough for others, but a simple, honest expression of who you are. That is the life you deserve, not one lived in the shadows of others' expectations, but one lived fully, authentically, without apology. And the moment you choose that life, the moment you decide that your own approval is the only one that truly matters, is the moment you become truly free. At this stage in life, the time for proving yourself is over. The time for chasing approval, for explaining, for justifying, for bending to fit expectations that were never truly yours, that time is past. What remains, what matters now, is how you choose to live the years ahead. And if there is one thing you must take with you, let it be this: focus on yourself and stay silent. Silence is not weakness, it is not surrender, it is the mark of someone who no longer feels the need to explain their worth. You do not need to waste your breath on arguments that lead nowhere, on people who refuse to listen, on conversations that drain rather than enrich. Your energy is precious now, protect it. Choose carefully where you invest your time, your thoughts, your emotions. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every person is worth engaging. Learn to walk away. Learn to be at peace with solitude. Learn to find fulfillment in the life you choose, not in the approval of others. Because the truth is, no one else is living your life. No one else will feel your regrets when it is too late. And in the end, the only person who truly needs to understand your choices is you. So, live as you see fit. Carry yourself with quiet strength. Let your actions speak louder than your words. And above all, never forget, you owe the world nothing, but you owe yourself everything.